How many of you can remember the first time that you met your father? I can't. I was 14. And I wasn't expecting a cowboy hat, a big belt buckle, cowboy boots, and that wallet with a chain on it. That was what I was not expecting. If you've heard the expression, don't judge a book by its cover, that was him. Because if it was a book and I didn't look at it, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. You see, Jesus spoke in parables. My dad gave me nuggets throughout my life. The first one came shortly after my mom and dad married, and there was some tension in the house between the two of us. He pulled me aside and he said, you know, you've done a good job of being a man of the house, but it's my turn now. I've got this. He said, just be a kid. And the weight of the world was lifted off of me at that moment. You know, as a teenager, first time I tried alcohol, I remember him pulling me aside and saying to me, I know you're going to do it. I'd be a hypocrite if I told you not to. But if ever in a situation where you need to call me because either you or somebody else was drinking, you let me know. Well, a few months later, I had to take him up on that. Called him at 2 o'clock in the morning because I was stranded in Pittsburgh and it was an hour one each way. And he had to work the next day. But he came and he got me and not a word was spoken. He just drove. I don't think we talked about it for months or years to come. Then there was the time when I was trying to decide to go into the military. And I sat across the kitchen table from him and I said, what should I do? And he looked at me and he said, that's your decision. You have to live with it. That's not mine. When I did enlist, he gave me 3 pieces of advice before I left for boot camp. 1, Keith, the first 2 weeks are going to be your hardest. It's just a mind game. Once you get through that, everything is great. The second was, don't let them know your name. Never explained what that meant, but he told me that. And the last one was, don't ever volunteer. Well, lo and behold, first day of basic training, standing in a formation, Fort McClellan, Alabama, 95 degrees. The drill sergeant asked, I need volunteers who have a driver's license. I didn't raise my hand. 8 unsuspecting soldiers were picked and chosen to mow the grass in a 95-degree heat. Thank you, Dad. At that point, I knew I needed to listen. When I got called up for Desert Shield, Desert Storm, he was the one awakening me. And he stood there, listening to the phone call. Before I left, he gave me one more piece of advice, another nugget. And he said, whatever you do, come back alive. You do what you have to do. Never explained it, but I knew if the situation arose, I would understand what he meant. When I left education, family, my brother, my mother were in disarray, didn't understand it. He pulled me aside and he said, son, you got this. He said, you're a hustler. I know you're going to be fine. Before I close, I'm going to give you some of my own nuggets. To my brothers, my nieces, and my nephews, our dad, our grandfather, and our great-grandfather has done a hell of a job for the last 40 years. Our mother needs us now. If you live close, stop by, invite her over. If you live far, pick up the phone, make that phone call. To my sweet wife, when you ask me, why am I so good to you? One reason is sitting right there. She would talk to me all the time. The next was my father modeled it day in and day out for those 40 plus years. And to my mother, 40 years ago, and then some, he took the four of us from one side of the track to the next. And I know that he's there waiting to take you from this life to the next life prepared. And to my dad, I hope that when you met Jesus and he asked you why you deserve entrance, you looked at him and you said, if my life was a book, it would be a bestseller. I married a single mother with 3 teenage boys and raised them to be godly men. I love you.